Welcome to the Pump Take Sports Show, part 2 of the three of us rambling about basketball teams. This time we're going to be rambling about the Western Conference. So let me just hop over to a little screen share here that we can see. I'm going to pin us down here. All right, wonderful. So let's start. Teams that we like, teams that we don't like. Let's just start talking about some teams. Does anyone want to start with one?
Yeah, I'll take it. Kale usually take it off, but you didn't speak up, so I'll take it.
You can take her.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah, so I am going to go with the Golden State Warriors as the team that I want to talk about, and I just want to, this is an interesting thing for the audience to know.
Put it out there.
The three of us, well, not even the three of us, a group of friends, including the three of us, were all hanging out and drinking. And I think this was before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing poker and we were just vibing and I was talking about how much I love Curry and I think the Warriors are going to be good this year or decent. I said good, and Jake and Kale were like, I don't think they're going to be good. And I was like, I do. And then we kept talking and we ended up reaching a drunken bet. And the bet was $30 for the Warriors to win 40 games or more. And that was my bet. So I think the Warriors are going to win 30 games or more, I thought. And I made it with each of them. So I have $60 on the line, and each of them have $30 on the line. So if, this is an interesting thing to know. But right now, they're 6-6. They're 500. They're starting to look a little better from the beginning of the season, at least. And I'm feeling pretty decent about my bet. It's going to be tough because 40 games is hard. Because 40 and I think there's 72 games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like what the Warriors are doing right now. I think adding in Draymond is important. He's a great role player. He is definitely looking like he's past his prime, which he is, but he is definitely a good role player. He knows what he's doing. I think Wiseman still has a lot of room for improvement. I think the Oubre shooting slump will end eventually, and he's starting to look a little better as well. I think Wiggins is starting to look a little better. He's starting to fit in with their team more. And Curry is just, he's been doing Curry things. And I like what the Warriors are doing, boys. How do you feel about the bet? What do you think?
First, Kale, or do you want me to go?
I'll give it to you that I think they're a little bit better than I thought they were going to be. I still don't think that they're going to win 40 games because I just think that the team, obviously Steph Curry is really good, but I don't think that the team that surrounds him has outside of Kelly Oubre, who I think people kind of like to talk about he's a little bit better than he is. I don't think the team around him has changed a whole awful lot that it's going to make a significant difference than the team they were last year outside of what Curry can just do by himself. And I just don't think that that's 40 wins.
Yeah.
Especially, I think 2 of their wins took a Steph Curry career high to accomplish and a Damian Lee bullshit call to win.
Yeah.
So
I agree with the bullshit Damian Lee call.
I
don't agree with the call. I agree with your opinion.
Yeah. So, yes, they're 6-6. You can't argue with the record. Those 2 games were definitely losable games. Curry put up a 62. When Curry puts up 62, you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
And the other one was they almost lost to the Bulls earlier in the season. They didn't, but they almost did. So I agree with Kale. I think they're 6-6 right now. They're playing good. But I stand by my side of the drunken poker bet of them not winning 40 games. Because it's going to be tough with how good some of these teams look in the West, which we can talk about. They have the same record as the OKC Thunder, who Al Horford and Shea. And Shea's really good, but
dude, and the Nuggets,
and the Nuggets, who have been disappointing. The Nuggets have really been disappointing this year.
Bro, Jamal Murray, I was talking to someone about this. I think it was maybe you, Jake, and maybe it was Lucas or something, but
it was probably Lucas.
Yeah, it's probably Lucas because he loves Jamal Murray. But I was talking to some of you guys about Jamal Murray and after his amazing playoff performance, and I was saying that it was interesting. I was like, what do you think the Nuggets are going to do next year? If they know now that he can, put up 30, put up 40 points in a game, are they going to start using him more? And Jamal Murray's been, in my opinion, a little bit of a disappointment this year. Not even a little bit. He's just kind of been doing what he does every year in the regular season. He doesn't look any better than he did last. And I think that's a big reason
Yeah.
that the Nuggets are sitting at the position that they are right now.
Yeah, Jamal Murray, like, kind of like improving upon what he has been in the past was going to be a big like thing for the Nuggets to succeed this year. And you know what? In defense of Jamal Murray, I'm not like extremely like disappointed in what he's been. I think that like that playoff series, specifically against the Clippers, with the world watching, got a lot of people on Jamal Murray, and they brought him up to be something that he just hasn't ever been. And I don't think
Other than in the bubble.
Pardon?
Mhm.
Other than in the bubble.
Other than in the bubble, but the bubble's a very unique scenario, as we saw with just a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
And like I
Like
don't,
TJ Warren and stuff.
yeah, like people who think that like TJ Warren is going to be this like borderline all-star. It's like that's just not going to happen. And that's
Yeah.
but that's not even his fault. That's not a fair expectation to put on him. And I think it's sort of the same sort of thing with Jamal Murray. I expected him to get a little better going into the season, yes, just based on what we were showing in the playoffs. But
Mhm.
people who are expecting Jamal Murray to all of a sudden just become this like superstar, like one of the best scorers in the NBA, like he was in the bubble.
Yeah,
It's like you're going to be disappointed because that's just not what he is.
I agree with that for sure, man.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying. A team that I kind of wanted to call out that I've been impressed with is the Jazz. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now, sitting at 8-4, third in the conference as it stands right now. I just think the Jazz continue to do what the Jazz do, and this season it's been working well for them. Like, I don't know if there's any even thoughts that you could add to that.
Connolly looks better.
Conley is playing a lot better. Conley,
a lot better. He looked trash last year.
He looks like kind of old Conley a little bit. He's well, he's scoring well, and you love to see that. And yeah, I mean the Jazz. I just like the Jazz. I like them winning 4 games. I like Gobert. I like Donovan Mitchell. They're one of those teams. In the last episode, if anyone watched, we were talking about building it the right way, and the Jazz build it the right way. So you like to see a team that builds it the right way kind of do well.
Yeah, and it works for them.
Yeah.
The Jazz, it's like there's not really much you can even say about them. They're kind of just like they're a great regular season team every year. They kind of tend to float around that like 3, 4, 5, 6 range of the Western Conference. It's all about what they can do in the playoffs for the Jazz, because they seem like the Jazz are a lock for the playoffs every year, but it seems like it's then when they start to struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, man, 100%. You guys want to bring up the LA teams?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like so I have Paul George on my I have Paul George on my fantasy team, and he's playing amazing this year. Way more consistent. He's shooting a lot better. He's scoring more assists, rebounds, kind of everything. He kind of is looking like Paul George, like not exactly like MVP like candidate Paul George on the Oklahoma City Thunder, but it's a lot closer to that than he was last year. So the Clippers definitely look good. But yeah, I'm still Lakers top, and I think they should be there, and they will be there. And I can definitely, I'd put my money on them going back to the finals.
I think the Lakers will just stay at the top of the conference too. But one big thing that obviously biased, I think the Clippers addition of Serge Ibaka this offseason, just from what I've seen of any Clippers games I've watched, has been excellent for them. I think that like just based on what I've sort of heard from just Clippers communities, there was a lot of issues with Montrezl Harrell's chemistry both on and off the court. And Ibaka has kind of like slotted into that role that Harrell does, as that just kind of dominant presence inside. But Ibaka can stretch the floor really well, and he seems like he's just a great veteran presence defensively. He kind of brings to them like what he brought to the Raptors, where if like the top guys are having a little bit of trouble scoring, Ibaka can get you some of that like energy going. And that's something that I don't think the Clippers had last year. It was sort of just the Kawhi Paul George show, and then if Lou Will is not hitting his shots, which Lou Will doesn't hit his shots in the playoffs, they were fucked. But I think a guy like Ibaka, he's been there before. He's had that role on a team, and that's been an excellent addition for them so far. So I think the Clippers have improved since last year.
Yeah, and also the thing with Ibaka too is that last year everyone would talk about the Clippers being the best defensive team in the league, which was absolutely like BS. They have Kawhi, who's really good as a defender, and Paul George is a good defender, but Pat Bev is the most overrated player in the NBA.
Agreed.
And so Serge Ibaka actually is a good defender. So when they're running Ibaka and Paul George and Kawhi at the same time, like that is a really nasty team to try and stop. And if you have Zubac who just puts his arms up under the net, like some big men struggle with that. So
Yeah.
like, they are a good defensive team, and they'll continue to do well. They're no Lakers, because the Lakers just have the chemistry that the Clippers forgot about last season when they decided to rest everyone. And so the Lakers will continue to do well, and continue to kind of dominate the West, I think. I'd be shocked, if they fall any lower than the 3rd seed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so fun. Like, I think one thing that is great about our show is we do bring in our biases, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, totally. It is totally
makes
okay.
it interesting.
Like
and I think it's pretty clear to the audience that, Clippers aren't a very liked team here, especially or I don't know how this is. Yeah, like these guys as well. But yeah,
I have
another
a team.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
So the Memphis Grizzlies, they lost Ja Morant for about like 2 weeks, I think it was, after his ankle injury. And they also are missing Jaren Jackson Jr. as well at this time. And I'm very, very impressed that the Grizzlies are still 6-6 and have won a lot of really like good games with their depth guys. I don't think their guys on that team get enough credit, as like Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Jonas Valanciunas. Those guys really have stepped up and kind of won the Grizzlies a lot of games. Where else is their scoring coming from when Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. are out of the game?
For real.
I just really like how the Grizzlies have, continued to stay afloat. Now they got Ja Morant back last night. At the time of recording this, he got back last night. But like they missed him for a long time, and they kind of stayed above water, and I like that about them.
Yeah, and now like that performance speaks volumes. They're sitting at 1 game out of the playoffs behind teams like the Spurs are in there that like they could fall out. The Warriors are ahead of them slightly. I don't know. They're both 6-6. It must just be like a matchup thing. But it'll be really interesting to see what the Grizzlies can do with, now that they have Ja back. Jaren Jackson, I believe it was like Marco has him on his fantasy team. He might know better. Was it a mid-January or like early February return?
Yeah, it said it was supposed to be a mid to late January return.
So
but so far it's coming up, but so far he has no, well, at least on the fantasy app that we use, which is Yahoo, he has no timetable currently. So it could be looking into like February even, because there's no updates on him. I've looked it up online too, and I don't really see any major updates, but yeah, he will come back this season.
Yeah. And when he does, like they have Ja Morant and they have their two, like I really like Jaren Jackson Jr. I just want to preface by saying this, but JV, like Jonas Valanciunas, might be a better player right now than Jaren Jackson Jr. is. So they get their second or third best player back, and like the Grizzlies can really do some damage this year, I think, in the West, because Ja Morant obviously looks really great before he got hurt, and JV looks great, and they have good scoring and good depth guys that are kind of good defenders as well. And another team, if you guys are okay with moving on from the Grizzlies, just wanted to call out the Grizzlies there a little bit, is the Pelicans sitting at 4-7. This one surprised me when I first looked at the Western Conference standings, because the Pelicans, in my opinion, are a very good basketball team with, I don't need to tell you who's on the team, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo, Zion, all those guys. 4-7 surprises me. They've lost a lot of close games because it seems like, I said this to Kale off air, it seems like the Pelicans, you turn on a 10 o'clock Pelicans game and somehow like they're down by 2 and there's like 18 seconds left.
Yeah, it's like 97-99 in the fourth quarter every Pelicans game.
So, I hope to see them do better, because I do think the Pelicans have a chance to make the playoffs this year, even though it seems crazy with them sitting as low down as they are. I really like this Pelicans team. So do you guys have any thoughts about the Pelicans?
Yeah, I'm surprised the Pelicans are off to this sort of start too. They're a team that going into the season, I thought that they would be talented enough almost to just kind of start to roll a little bit, because like I'm very high on Brandon Ingram, very high on Zion, obviously first overall pick. But yeah, I'm surprised the Pelicans are sitting this low. And that being said, I do think that because they've been in so many close games and they're a very young team, they're going to start to figure out how to win some of those games. They have a new coach too in Stan Van Gundy, so that could also be a little bit of a transitionary period in terms of like rotations at the end of games that they're still figuring out at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So
And another thing, Kale, to add to the transitionatory period that they're in is that I saw a thing somewhere that they are the only team in the NBA to not have any remaining members on their team since 2018. So the 2018 Pelicans team, there's not a single member now on that roster. So they are really new. There's a lot of chemistry things that could obviously improve. But, you know, I like to think that they can kind of figure it out and put some pieces together moving forward.
Yeah, and like with a young team like the Pelicans, those kind of things, they only improve with time and time that the guys spend playing together. So
and they have a lot of exciting young guys too, like NAW. Like he might not be amazing, but I like NAW as like a guy moving forward. Same thing for Tyler Lewis Jr. He had some minutes the other night, and he looked good in his like kind of garbage time minutes. They just have a very young, exciting team. Hopefully, Lonzo can come back from his tendonitis in his knee kind of sooner than later. JJ Redick hasn't been hitting as many shots as he normally does. So there's a lot of things that can come back to regression with the Pelicans.
Yeah. With Bledsoe and Lonzo hurt now too. One thing I'm excited to see with the Pelicans. I'm excited to see NAW and Kira Lewis start to enter the rotation, because now that those other guys who we've already seen already, they're not sitting in front of them. And granted, Lonzo will be the starting point guard when he comes back, because he's the best point guard on the team. But it'll be interesting to see what those guys do and if they can kind of like impress enough to push their way into that organization, because it's really just an open rotation.
Mm-hmm. There's another team that, sorry, I don't know if you guys are have any more points about the Pelicans.
No, all good. You can go to the next one.
Yeah, but another team I wanted to touch on was the Rockets, who are sitting with the same record as the Pelicans. And the Rockets, man, they have an interesting and actually quite a good roster. They've come to have now. Like Oladipo's on their team now. Wood is playing great. John Wall, when he's playing, is really good as well. I mean, they have Cousins on their team, which is kind of interesting if he can start picking it up. Like, what do you guys think about the Rockets?
I feel bad for the Rockets to a certain extent this season, because, how are you supposed to go out there and win basketball games when your franchise player is trashing your organization in post-game interviews when you lose? And he's completely, I'm obviously talking about James Harden. He lost the locker room completely. You see guys like John Wall and Boogie come out and talk about how Harden was disrespectful and he didn't go out there every night trying to win. And, then they make a massive trade, obviously. And now they have all these guys who have to pass through physicals with COVID and everything. It's a lot harder to do that with traveling and all that stuff. So I think it's more of a question of kind of forget about the 4-7 a little bit and kind of look forward to what are they going to do now with this new team? What are they going to do with this Oladipo BS that's coming out that he wants to go to Miami?
He wants out.
Oh, I didn't hear that. What the heck?
Yeah, Oladipo's already requesting.
He's already he wants to get out of
God.
He only wanted to go to Miami.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't know why they didn't. They had Chris LeVert, correct? And they gave Chris LeVert, or was that just a part of the trade?
They traded LeVert to Indiana.
Pacers. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just keep LeVert.
Well, now that Oladipo's coming out like this, it seems obvious that they should have kept LeVert.
I guess that's hindsight, yeah.
But it's just like, it's very frustrating to me. As if I was a Rockets fan, I would be just absolutely frustrated that we can't just get out on the floor and just play basketball. We have to deal with all this other BS going on in the organization, like with Oladipo wanting out and Harden wanting out. And now, we have, like, it's just a mess. It's just an absolute mess. You have some guys that you got in the trade that are going out there, but I mean, John Wall's still playing well, but he's an older guy, and it's hard to kind of focus on basketball when you have all this other noise around your team. So
it's really not a good situation. Like, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, first of all, I don't think that they're going to win a lot of games. I think there's a little bit too much of a cultural like stink right now to like for a good basketball team to go out there and like be competitive. I wouldn't be surprised if Oladipo's just moved by the trade deadline again for picks, and I think that's the direction the Rockets should kind of start to go in. It's just like start just collecting as much youth and draft capital as you can, and just start to move towards the future. The James Harden era is done. I don't think there's any point in prolonging this kind of era of Rockets basketball of just being like a middle of the road team with like have John Wall for like this season up until the end of his deal, whenever that is. But then like you can't be paying John Wall again when he's like 33.
No. And John Wall and Boogie and PJ Tucker and all these guys, like they're nice, older players, but just tied the Rockets over to where they're using the 4 first-round picks they got, all of their first-round picks, the 4 pick swaps they got for Harden, and like kind of moving in a different direction. It's just
that's your number one asset right now is that draft capital.
Oh, absolutely. And you shouldn't be doing anything with it. You should just be holding on to it. If the Rockets are bad, the Rockets are bad, and then you're rebuilding, kind of like what OKC did after Westbrook was moved. They kind of just said, okay, we're going to trade everyone for picks. Instead, Rockets only had to trade one idiot for picks, and then got 4 first-round picks plus 4 pick swaps. So the Rockets are an unfortunate situation. A thing that I thought was really kind of frustrating with Oladipo is that the Pacers came out and said that he turned down $25 million plus a year to continue to play for the Pacers. And I get you want to go somewhere else, but you know what, Oladipo, you are somewhere else now. You're in Houston now. And now he's already saying, no, I'm not happy here either. Like, where are you going to be happy? Like, what kind of team does Miami even want to take on the headache of this guy who's coming off horrible injuries, wants a max contract, has turned down 2 teams, and is now stirring up all this drama? Do the Heat even want that? Do the Heat even want to bother themselves with a guy that's, I don't know.
I feel bad for the Heat, Heat fans, honestly. Like with all the drama that they're having to deal with.
You mean Rockets fans?
Oh, sorry. Yes, my bad.
Yeah.
Rockets fans, actually. Yeah, with all the drama they're having to deal with and how everyone's just treating them, how the media is treating it. Like, I feel like the media is kind of, I don't know, not necessarily on Harden's side, but they're like, yeah, I understand. Harden, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, they're really
they're gassing up that big 3 hard.
They're gassing up that big. You open your phone and you just see everything's just like a Photoshop picture of Harden, Kyrie, and Durant.
Yeah, I know.
I hope
they haven't even played together.
Yeah, I hope
this is just going to turn into the exact same discussion as last video.
Yeah. Houston actually, I think, did very well getting out of the Harden situation.
I agree.
Harden was being an absolute, he was being an idiot, and he was
get him out of there.
Get him out of there. You get 4 first-round picks, and me and Kel tried to figure out how pick swaps work. It's really confusing, but I've seen people consider it 8 first-round picks somehow. So, they got a whole bunch of first-round picks, and I would say just get rid of Oladipo. Doesn't want to be there. Goodbye, Oladipo. You're not part of our future. We don't want to have you around. Kind of just move forward and just completely rebuild. And the Rockets could be exciting in a few years. This draft class is supposed to be amazing, and they have so many great picks now. So it sucks that for Rockets fans to go from, oh, we're entering the season and we have a chance to go to the Western Conference Finals this year. That's what we all the Rockets are.
Yeah, now your best players are
now your best player is John Wall, who you have
no
you literally have no emotional connection to at all, because John Wall is also a new player on this team.
And Wood
traded friggin' Westbrook for John Wall. So it's just an absolute catastrophe. James Harden really left this team just in the dirt with no direction on where to go. So it sucks for the Rockets, but it is kind of what it is, and you gotta just kind of rebuild at this point and try and win some ball games too, but rebuild for sure.
Yeah.
Is there any other teams that you guys want to talk about, or should we wrap it up here?
I'm down to just do one more, and that team is the Phoenix Suns that I like to talk about. I think that sitting at 7-4, 4th seed in the West in the playoffs, I think the Suns can actually kind of sustain this. I think they got a lot better this offseason with the additions of Chris Paul, for example, great veteran ad. And then there's also guys that have been on the team for a few years that Suns fans have just been kind of waiting to develop, like Mikal Bridges. He's finally becoming that kind of
There's another guy as well.
Yeah, that kind of that 3-and-D athletic wing that you want. Cameron Johnson's becoming a really great role player with how he's able to shoot from behind the arc at such a high percentage like he is this year.
Yep.
And then you have a star in Devin Booker and even DeAndre Ayton, who they're just going to continue to develop more chemistry together and get better. And I really like what the Suns are doing. And I think that this, with how bad they've been the past few years, and they continue just accumulate all of these young assets, I think they're kind of due to become to reach the position they're in now and sustain it.
Yeah, I agree. Adding someone like Chris Paul is such a big addition to your organization. Just having that veteran leadership. as well as the ability to distribute the ball. Like obviously Devin Booker is still young, and I'm not saying he's a bad passer, but having him shooting off ball, having someone to pass inside to Ayton and kick it out on the wing to Bridges and Johnson and stuff, definitely an awesome addition for the Suns. I like what they're doing.
I would highly recommend everyone, like if anyone's watching this far, that's pretty cool. But to go and check out the JJ Redick podcast with Chris Paul on it. It's recent, so he's on the Suns at this point, and it's really, really cool. He talks about the Suns, he talks about the organization, he talks about being inside the locker room and kind of who he is as an NBA player today, how he looks at the game differently than now as a veteran leader on a team where everyone's like 22, compared to what he looked at himself and his team like when he played on the Clippers in like Lob City. It was really cool, and I kind of just wanted to add that because it'll be a really cool hour and a half of listening if you're just like doing laundry or like driving or something to like kind of listen to. It's good stuff. But yeah, we have to end this soon. So thank you very much for watching. We'll do more NBA videos soon. It's still very early in the season, of course. So more things are going to happen. We're going to do a playoff prediction video a little bit later into the season where we kind of we make a bracket ourselves and then look at, teams we think are going to be in and out of that bracket, stuff like that, who we think is going to win. Hopefully it's not the Nets, as we talked about in the last video. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to stop sharing this thing. And we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Adios.